Well, we'll get started here. Good evening, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It is a Monday, the 25th of March, 2019, as we move right along. And the Patreon folks got their live stream about an hour or so ago. So this is round number 2, and some of you are here for both. As Robert Brown said, it's like a twilight doubleheader. I just added that it's a twilight doubleheader at a ballpark. I just added that it's like having seats right behind home plate. Or, well, not quite. But whatever. Good to see you here on this Monday. We have a pretty quiet weather pattern going forward. It is a month where March basically came in like a lion in the east and now going out like a lamb, which is part of the old saying. But the old sayings, there are a reason for those old sayings. They are based on people's life experiences, people's observations. And I think what it is signaling here is the fact that we are having what I think is going to be a typical average spring, one that does not include a month-long extension of the winter season. In past years, we've seen cold stretches of weather lasting through the month of April and even into the first part of May. And in those cold stretches, you would get occasionally a day or two where the temperatures would warm up, and then you'd get another stretch of cold weather lasting a week or more. Well, this is going to be the reverse. I think what we're seeing here are stretches of milder than average weather or warmer than average weather that will be interrupted every so often by a couple of days of cold. And I think that is what we're seeing getting underway in the east. And speaking of getting underway, let's do so. I'm going to start off with something very rare and unusual. And what we have here, and I'm thinking, well, it's either Iba or Eba in terms of how it's pronounced. This is a tropical storm that developed overnight and today off the coast of Brazil in the southern hemisphere in the South Atlantic. These systems normally thought to not occur at all, but research indicates that, in fact, there's at least one subtropical storm in the South Atlantic just about every year. And every so often, they do wind up completing a transition over into a tropical storm, or in the extremely rare case, back, I believe it was in 2010, was Hurricane Katrina, which made landfall in Brazil. This is the first time since 2010, so it's been 9 years, believe it or not, since the last time we've seen this happen. And if you notice that there's a blow-up of thunderstorms, that's actually where the circulation center is. The general track of this is toward the southeast. This is going to not really have any kind of land impact other than that it's creating rough seas off the coast of Brazil. But just pretty interesting that we have this. There is no connection with regards to a system happening here and the kind of tropical season that we're going to have. There's no link to it that I could find, or stories or research that I know of that links all of this. Apparently, these appearances of these tropicals or subtropical systems, I should say, and the occasional tropical system in the South Atlantic could occur at any time. There's no real set season. Just whenever conditions seem to be ripe, they happen. And there you have it. So we are still, of course, well over 2 months away for the start of the hurricane season in the Atlantic, and we are less than that for the start in the Eastern Pacific. Let's go to the surface map tonight. This is the 21Z, the 5 p.m. surface map. We've got weak low pressure in southern Virginia. There's rain going on as far north as southern Pennsylvania and into parts of New Jersey. And just north of there is a bone-dry air mass that's starting to push in and going to suppress this whole system out to the east. It's going to follow that frontal boundary, that cold front that's drawn out into the Atlantic. That's going out. This low is going out straight east. It's not going to be lifting up the coast. There's some rain with this, and again, this is in parts of southern Pennsylvania into Virginia. You can see it here on the radar tonight. Where all the rain is. On the northern fringe of this, by the way, at least aloft, we are noticing on some of the radars that can pick up precipitation type that there's a little bit of sleet or wet snow. I don't even know how much of that northern fringe is actually reaching the ground. The area is moving east. The overall system is kind of a mess. There's no real organization here. It's unlike those systems that we saw over the last week or so, the one from last Friday in particular, where you could really pick out that gigantic swirl on the satellite. You don't really have that here. It's all moving right along. And on the southern end, across Alabama, you have this east-west line of showers with embedded strong and possible severe thunderstorms. And here is where the Storm Prediction Center will come into play. And I've got their latest risk. We'll bring that up forward as of 7:35. There's a working severe thunderstorm watch that is up, and it's actually, yeah, they haven't cut it back yet, but you can see it here. It's inside that area of slight risk, covering much of southern Alabama except the southwestern part down near Mobile, and it's all encased inside a slightly larger area of marginal risk that runs down to the northeast coast of the southeast coast of Texas, and north and east of there extends into the rest of the state of Georgia, right along the South Carolina, North Carolina line, and back to the Alabama-Tennessee line. Really not a whole lot of severe weather that has been around since the outbreak. We've had a number of outbreaks since the end of February, but things have really kind of relaxed to a certain extent in the last couple of weeks. It's likely to rev up again at some point, but right now, at least for the next few days after this thing is done, there really isn't too much to worry about from the standpoint of severe weather. And always remember, if you're watching this on a replay, please remember that these radars are dated at 7:37 Eastern Time. You want to make sure you check your local radar, and for any watches and warnings by going to your local National Weather Service Forecast Office website page, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. Okay, so with regards to weather across the country tonight, there really isn't much. I've got there we go. I got everything hidden around, so I got to find it. So let's start with the watches and warnings that are up. There's not a whole lot happening. We're still dealing, of course, with the historic to catastrophic flooding in some areas in the northern tier, up in the northern plains, and then extending westward from there. Although the flood advisories and flood warnings that were up for parts of the Northwest, they seem to have relaxed a bit, and we don't see any up there at the moment. But we still have quite a few in eastern North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota. Also, some in and around the Great Lakes south of Chicago in northeastern Illinois, the northern third of Indiana, and northwestern Ohio, and also some flood advisories in parts of western Colorado and eastern Utah and western Wyoming. Winter storm warnings up for the Sierra Nevadas, up to 4 feet being forecast by the Weather Service offices there at elevations above 5,000 feet as we get the next round of weather systems coming into the west. And you can see the area in the salmon color across south central Pennsylvania. That's your severe thunderstorm watch as of 7:38 p.m. Eastern Time. WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, I always say, and I think it's worth reminding, that WPC usually does a fairly good job of figuring out where the rain's going to be in the next 7 days, and the larger amounts in a band across the middle Mississippi Valley to the lower lakes on the order of up to a few inches, and up into the northern half of California. You can see that concentration of precip of several to 5 inches in the Sierra Nevada, so that pretty much explains the forecast for up to 4 feet or more in those mountains, and rainfall amounts up to maybe an inch or two, running up through Oregon, western Oregon, western Washington, on up into the Pacific Northwest, and you've got a bubble of about 2 to 3 inches in northwestern California, southwestern Oregon. WPC does a really good job, I think, overall with regards to their forecasters. They really don't have an axe to grind. They have a, not that forecasters in other areas are biased, it's not that so much, but it's hard not to have certain biases when you're living in a particular area, you're forecasting for it. It gives you, the plus side is that you know the area like the back of your hand if you've lived there long enough. The downside is that sometimes that could be a hindrance, because it might not allow, it might blind you to seeing something that might argue against a certain forecast or certain way you want to go. So WPC kind of evens it all out. So let's look ahead and see where we're going this week, because overall it is a rather quiet view across the United States as of this evening, dominated by high pressure up in northeastern North Dakota. The air with this high is chilly, but it's not particularly cold. The cold air is up in eastern Canada, so some of that is bleeding down into the northeast. And you've got this weak low moving off the Carolina coast tonight with rain, and you see the GFS kind of has a little marking there of the lighter blue on the northernmost edge, so it wouldn't be a shocker if a couple of snowflakes mixed in. But the last time I checked on the observations, I really didn't see anything worthwhile. So that low gets pushed out to the east. There's nothing to lift it up the east coast, and our high just sort of takes over, keeping it chilly for the next couple of days. Just want to note here off the Florida coast, there's an inverted trough and probably a weak low that forms northeast of the Bahamas, and you've got this high sitting just south of Long Island by Wednesday afternoon. That looks to tighten up the pressure gradient a bit along the Florida coast. Nothing crazy, but it would suggest to me that it'll be on the breezy side there for a while on Wednesday. But nothing too much to worry about. That low winds up going out to the east. The high also winds up going out to the east as we go into the end of this week. And that warms things up, or at least attempts to warm things up. There's a front there in the north that's going to try and move into upstate New York and into New England, where it will have some success, but it's not going to make it much further south than that. And after we get into Friday, it basically starts backing up northward again as a warm front. Meanwhile, out in the west, we'll back up and show you what's happening here. We have a system that's into the west right now. A new one comes in for Wednesday, and there's your big snows in the Sierra Nevadas. Some of that energy gets translated eastward. You have low pressure in northern Texas by the time we get to Friday, and that low is going to run up toward the Great Lakes. Sort of a flat wave on a cold front that runs up to the northeast, and this is about the most eventful thing that happens in the next 7 days, is another cold front coming down next Saturday night and Sunday. But ahead of it in the eastern part of the United States, it should warm up nicely with a southwest flow. The only thing I would caution is, because it's the spring, wind direction is very important if you're along the coast, particularly if you're in southern New England and Long Island, and to a certain extent also the Jersey Shore down to the Delaware coast. You can easily go to more of a south wind in a situation like this, or even a south-southeast wind, and that keeps the coastal areas cooler, and in some instances significantly cooler. This front moves in, goes by, and then you have the GFS trying to bring up, it's done this for a few runs in a row now, where it does bring up a more substantial wave out of the Gulf of Mexico. We're now into early next week, so the week beginning Monday, April 1st. Now, if this verifies, and I haven't really gotten too deep into the long range here, but if this does wind up verifying, this could be a severe weather event for the southeastern part of the U.S. and the eastern Gulf states. Has not a half bad low that runs up into western Pennsylvania and western New York. This would be the first really significant system beyond whatever cold front comes through next weekend, and I'm not expecting too much with this. The trough position is going to be shifting to the west. We've been talking about that in the upper air, and with regards to the long range. So we'll jump over to the upper air maps here and take a look at the jet stream pattern overall. Let's roll back for a moment. So I just want to go back to last Friday, where we had this short wave, actually 3 short waves, 2 of them phased, and then a third short wave came down to these 2 upper lows that resulted in the storm that developed over New England. Elevation driven in some places up to a foot or more in spots in upstate New York and in Vermont in particular. Well, now, of course, we know that pulled away, and here's another short wave coming out of the northern plains. This is for today, and you'll notice that the jet stream in Canada just kind of comes down and squashes it. It's just like a gigantic weight, just squashes it out off the coast, and then you get this kind of flat ridge that develops across much of the country. You have a trough off the west coast, you have a split flow, and another trough that's dropping down out of Canada. And here, in this instance, toward the end of this is for Thursday. This is the weather front that doesn't make it much further south than, say, central New York, central New England, because the trough doesn't really dig very much. It just kind of swings around. So there's enough of a ridge here in the east to keep that front from getting too far south. And then, of course, that trough pulls out. So now you go to more of a southwest flow as you head into Saturday. And here's your system for Sunday that swings around. Also, there's your Pacific energy, meanwhile, in the southern part of that split, drives down into Texas. And here's your system for this would be Tuesday, April the 2nd, and then that lifts up. Hard to say whether this is how it's going to play out. There are, of course, as you go into the longer range, you always know that there are differences in how the models handle this. The GFS wants to have a bit of a phase. The European, on the other hand, really squashes it more. That some of that energy that comes down and actually drops it down into Louisiana, Texas, way down at the bottom of that trough, and it just kind of gets squashed as it moves off the east coast. So there's still a lot of variables with regards to where the overall pattern is going much beyond this coming week. I think this week is a pretty straightforward look. The GFS on the upper air in its longer term on the late afternoon run, there's been a general sense that the Pacific jet is going to gain control, and I think as a whole that will be the case. The ridge is going to want to pop up in the east whenever it can. There's no blocking, so the systems are just moving right along. Here's your ridge in the east early the week of the 2nd. Again, the specifics have yet to be worked out with regards to if we wind up seeing anything substantial coming out of the plains and the lower Mississippi Valley Gulf states for the early part of the week of April 1st. But the ridge does want to keep coming back there. Even though you keep getting these occasional short waves that swing down from Canada, they move through and they keep on going. Again, this to me is a signal of a spring that is behaving normally, if you want to put it that way. Getting normal weather in any season is more the exception than the rule. We all know with experiencing weather, it's really about volatility much of the time, and whether you have a little bit of volatility or a lot of volatility is the big question, and blocks drive that. The depths of troughs and the strength of ridges drive all that volatility forward. And right now we see, as we said, an absence of blocking, so everything's just going to be moving along. Cold shots will be a day, they'll last for a day or two, followed by warmer stretches of several days in between weather systems. Just want to give you the full U.S. satellite view tonight. There isn't really anything very impressive with regards to the system moving through the east at the moment. It's not like the impressive satellite signatures that we had last week. Dry air covering the regions of the Great Lakes and on up through upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania. That bone dry air is moving down. The dew points in eastern Canada are below zero. So this is really dry air that's funneling southward on a northerly wind. Once that low pulls out, that dry air will sweep southward. And if you look closely, you could see the upper air system that is off the Pacific Northwest coast, and that's driving the system into California with the heavy rains that we saw there. I don't know if I did pull the radar up in the west. You can see it here. You've got moisture streaming in with heavy rains and some snows going on in the Sierra Nevadas, and then a little further north we could see rain coming into the northwestern part, northwestern Washington, down into western Washington State and down into northwestern Oregon. I kind of like this time of year in some respects, if only because of the fact that after coming off the winter season, I need a break. It's really what it boils down to, and this affords me a time to have such a break, and it also gives me time to go in and do some upgrading of my websites, my weather app, and a few other things, and sit down with folks in Techland and figure out new ways of doing stuff. So I try to spend it productively when the weather is quiet. That also includes getting out to do some fishing, which Mertha Gunter, I did not do this weekend. A few other things came up, and I wound up not fishing. It wasn't quite as warm as I would have liked it to be to do a little bit of fishing, and that's always a holdback. But I'll tell you what, if I don't get a bad wind at the end of this week or on Saturday, I will be out there. Opening day with baseball coming. I think the Yankees open on Thursday. If I haven't been paying too close attention. I saw somebody put it up somewhere. William Uber, I don't know if you've gone out yet fishing, but I've got a spot in mind that I'm going to try out, and if it works, I'll let you know. Okay, I'm not going to say what that spot is now. I want to try it first. Let's see. We have Malachi Dogden. Nice to see you on board. It is bad, and you said helling. I'm sure you meant hailing. I assume that you're inside that severe weather area that is in Alabama. If not, just specify where you might be. T-Bear is on tonight. Robert Brown. You've got lightning and thunder there in Goldsboro, North Carolina, from that stuff that's moving through the Carolinas. The WPC putting down 1 to 2 inches there. A lot of that's going to is front end loaded with what's coming through at the moment. Lisa Nieves, nice to see you. How will the weather be on Long Island and Islip? Well, chilly start, warm finish toward the end of the week and the weekend. But the big question, Lisa, for Long Island, as you know, is does the south wind come in? Because when it does, then it's off the 40-degree ocean, and we're talking about temperatures where you'll be hearing about places to our west in New York City and points westward, especially in New Jersey, that will be in the 60s and possibly even into the 70s. And we're sitting here with temperatures on Long Island in the 40s. Just want to see what the GFS is doing with regards to temperatures toward the end of the week. And here's Wednesday, where it looks like the GFS might be warming things up a little faster on this run, as it already has temperatures into the 50s up to the Hudson Valley in New York City on Wednesday. Oh, no, that's the long range. I'm sorry, I got the wrong day. I thought that looked a little odd. Hang on. All right, so here's tonight and, well, Saturday, Sunday. So here's tonight, okay? By tomorrow morning, 20s and low 30s, 40s during the day. So this is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 8 a.m., 20s and low 30s Wednesday morning. A little, a few spots near 50 in the afternoon. 50s down in Virginia. So let's see where it takes us by the time we get to Thursday. So Thursday now, we're starting to see 60s moving their way up into Virginia. I'm going to widen this to the view that we could see all the way down to Florida. some 70s down into Florida, 60s in Georgia, South Carolina. And now Friday, now here's Friday again, assuming that that front doesn't get through, you've got 60s up to about New York City and 70s into Virginia. And then Saturday, 70s reaching up to New York City, upper 60s into near 70 in the into central New England, even some 60s into parts of north central New Hampshire and into southwestern Maine. And you've got 80s creeping up off the southeast coast and northern Florida, and scattered around along the Gulf Coast. So you can see the warm-up here on the GFS model pushing pretty far to the north as we get toward the end of the week. Then by Sunday now, it's got this next colder shot coming into the northeast. Now, if the front gets hung up, maybe we'll push it back and have a second warm day with a cold front and maybe some showers coming in later on Sunday if it's delayed. I don't know that it will be. The models lately with these systems, with these kind of cold fronts, wind up bringing them through a little bit faster than what they show out in the longer range. So we'll have to bear that in mind going forward. So I think that really pretty much covers it tonight. Take advantage of the quiet weather. Just enjoy the blossoming spring that we're going to be seeing. These warm days that are coming up will probably do a good job at starting to bloom things around and bringing things out on time, which is a big, big plus. And trout season, yes, gets underway on April 1st, Keith James. Be able to hit some of the restricted freshwater lakes and ponds on Long Island, but April 1st, a lot of them open up. There are some, and always check whatever your state is. They have websites with regards to specific rules. Johnny Quest, do I have a water vapor loop? I do. Hang on. Whoops. Let's see. Let's see. There's only one that I can bring up, and that's the upper level one. I could actually bring them all up, but here's the upper level loop. And I'll bring it down here so you can take a look at, the bluish areas. That's all dry air. And there's that push of dry air coming into Ohio and northwestern Pennsylvania that's sweeping southeastward. And then you've got dry air that's running eastward across the Gulf states. Of course, you got the line of storms. You see it here. You see that line firing up. That high-level moisture just bubbles up there across Alabama and into west central Georgia. Just want to see if we could take a look at the lower level water vapor. Now here's the lower level water vapor imagery. And you still have moisture with this stuff that's going through now in Virginia. But that's going to be out shortly. You can see the big area of yellow. So there's your dry air that's coming down and pushing southeast, where this whole thing is just basically getting swept out to the east and not lifting up to the north. So you're going to be okay, by the way. I mean, you're going to dry out. You should be dry for the rest of the week because that front is not making it down. That one for Thursday, later Thursday night, it will never get close to you. So you'll at least get to enjoy the warm-up before the second front that comes through. That'll get close to you probably maybe as early as Saturday evening or late Saturday evening. If it's a little slower, maybe not till later Saturday night or early on Sunday. And happy birthday, by the way, to Johnny Quest. Zim is on. I know this may not be space for it, but you're from Zimbabwe, where many perished along with the Mozambique-led Cyclone Ida. Was fascinating in terms of how it came on land and got sheared. Yeah, I honestly, I only looked at some of the stuff with regards to, the satellite loops with that particular tropical system. It was quite formidable at landfall, and of course in Australia, where they had two hurricanes come in making landfall in two different spots on the north coast, north central coast. I think it was Trevor and Veronica, which was a Category 3 that came into northwestern Australia at the same time. So remember, they have now started their fall. So this is kind of like this is September, late September in the southern hemisphere, like it would for them in terms of how our hurricane season is. September being the most active month, so they're going to start to see their tropical activity begin to slowly decrease as we get into April and into May. But yes, very, very from a meteorological standpoint, it's been a very busy and very impressive hurricane season in the southern hemisphere, indeed. Now let's end it here because it's 8 o'clock Eastern time. Remember, if you're watching this on a replay, any of the radars you saw with any severe weather is going to be dated, so be sure to go to weather.gov and go to your local National Weather Service office so you can check out what the latest radars look like and if there are any watches or warnings up for your particular area. We have those of you who are interested in getting into some super duper extensive weather coverage. You can subscribe to my weather platform, which is on Patreon. Here's the link in case you're new. It's just $2 a month. You get extra live streams, extra posts. You can message me at any time. And a lot of the folks that are on Patreon were on the live stream that they got, their private live stream 2 hours ago. They're on here for the second one. So they got 2 live streams today. So consider that. It's a great way to support my channel. And we're going to continue to look at more ideas going forward as far as expanding my weather coverage and weather presence across the internet world, as we say. For those of you who like having a weather app on your phone, give mine a try. It's absolutely free. You can download it for all mobile devices on Google Play or on the App Store. And while my focus is on New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, Southern Connecticut, and the Lower Hudson Valley, you can pull up weather information for your local area no matter where you are in the country. And I'll be doing some updates to that app. I've already added a few extra things. The snow maps will be coming off soon. I've added severe weather threat maps from the Storm Prediction Center, so you can have that handy every day, and you'll be able to see where the latest watches are when they go up. And there'll be a few other things that I'll be adding as well. Zoom Radar is on there right now, so you can take the radar wherever you'd like and zoom in as close as you want anywhere across the United States. And again, that's free, so just use that that link. And for those of you who shop on Amazon, I just want to mention the fact that that is a super easy way by just using my Amazon link and use the search box there to find your stuff. You don't have to buy what's actually on the page. Just search and shop, and it doesn't cost you an extra dime. Amazon throws me a couple of cigars for sending you there. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated sites. Thank you for being here tonight, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow.